What if the voices in the dark weren't just dreams, but memories? What if, at exactly 3:03 a.m., you woke up frozen in your bed and something was already there, watching? And what if everything we've ever called God, every ancient whisper carved in forgotten stone, wasn't divine at all, but designed? In a small, silent town buried in the ice of Alaska, people begin to vanish. Some scream in their sleep. Others never wake at all. And one woman, a grieving psychologist, is pulled into a truth far older than humanity itself. A truth that speaks in Sumerian. A truth that enters through the mind and leaves without proof. A truth that tells her, I am God. I created you. I will not let you remember. Tonight, we're going deep into the unknown, into the part of our history no one taught us to question. Stay with me. Let your thoughts wander. And ask yourself, if something took us before, who says they ever stopped? In the far, desolate north of Alaska lies Nome, a town wrapped in ice and silence. Snow never stops falling here. The sky hangs low, thick, and gray, pressing down on the rooftops like an old secret. The trees stand stiff and still, branches heavy with frost, as if frozen mid-whisper. At night, no birds, no animals, no wind, just the deep hum of silence, so dense it feels alive. But recently, this silence has changed. It's not peace, it's pressure. People vanish. First a hunter. Then a young couple. Then a child, taken from her bed with the window still locked from the inside. Their names vanish like their footprints, lost in the snow. Those who remain wake at the same hour, 3:03 a.m., sweating, shaking, their eyes wide open but unfocused. They say nothing, but their faces, their eyes hold something ancient. Something they cannot describe. No one talks about it in the open. But in hushed voices, over coffee that grows cold in untouched cups, they whisper, something is here. It waits. It watches. And sometimes, it chooses. Dr. Abigail Tyler lives in this cold place. She used to be warm. Before the darkness took something from her. A psychologist by training, she tries to help others with the strange sleep terrors that seem to spread like frostbite in Nome. Her office is small, tucked inside an old building whose walls creak when no one moves. The light flickers when the wind rises, except on the nights when the air is still and the lights still flicker. Abigail used to have a husband. Will. Kind eyes. A thoughtful laugh. But then, one morning, he was gone. Not missing, no. He was found. Lying in their own bed, his face frozen in a look of fear no living man should wear. The autopsy said nothing. But Abigail, she knew something had taken him, something not of this world. Since that day, her eyes have dulled. Her voice sounds distant, like someone speaking underwater. She moves through the day like she's sleepwalking, but at night, she doesn't sleep at all. She tells her children everything is okay. That the noises on the roof are just branches. That the white owl sitting by their window is just a bird. But in the pit of her stomach, Abigail knows, that is not an owl. And those are not branches. There's a presence. It lives behind walls, behind reflections. It watches when she blinks. It moves in the silence between heartbeats. Abigail feels it waiting, like a question with no answer, just watching, waiting. They came one by one. Different faces. Different stories. But the same hour. The same fear. Each patient sits in Abigail's office, their hands trembling, voices low and cautious, as if afraid the very walls might hear. Each of them wakes in the middle of the night, not stirred by a dream, not by a sound but by a presence. Always at exactly 3 a.m. They say it begins with a sudden heaviness pressing down on their chest, as if the air turns solid. Then the silence comes, thicker than snow. Not the peaceful kind, but a silence that feels wrong, like the world is holding its breath. They try to move, but their limbs won't obey. Frozen. Paralyzed. Staring at the same spot, the corner of the room, the doorway, the ceiling fan. That's where they see it. Some say it's a figure tall, thin, unmoving, darker than the shadows around it. Others speak of a soft white light, hovering above them, pulsing slowly like a living heartbeat in the ceiling. One man said it looked like an owl, perfectly still, perched outside his window, watching him through the glass. It didn't blink. It didn't move. Just watched. But when he closed his eyes, even for a second, he felt it standing at the foot of his bed. Abigail takes notes, but her pen feels heavier each time. She doesn't know what she's writing anymore, patient records, or warnings. These aren't dreams. She knows this now. Something is entering these people's lives at night. And if they are all seeing the same thing, it's because that thing wants to be seen. Still, she hopes the mind can protect itself. Maybe hypnosis will help them remember more and understand what's happening. But when the memories come, they do not bring peace. They bring something else. Something that should have stayed buried. It began with a whisper, then a scream. Under hypnosis, the patient's breathing grows rapid, shallow, then stops altogether as if his body no longer remembers how to inhale. His back arches violently. His eyes roll back, but not from pain, from terror. He's no longer in the room. Not fully. His voice, shaking, broken, begins to describe a sensation too unnatural for language. He says he was in bed, eyes wide, body stiff, and then, he began to rise. Not float, not levitate, rise, as if pulled by invisible strings. The mattress dipped below him as his back lifted first, then his legs. A hum filled the air, low and metallic, vibrating inside his teeth, inside his bones. He could feel something watching him, not with eyes, but with intention. And just before the memory cuts off, he starts screaming. His mouth opens wide, but the scream doesn't sound human anymore. It's as if two voices are coming through at once, his, and something else speaking through him. Abigail jolts him awake. The session ends. He weeps like a child. That night, he does not go home. The next morning, the police find him in his house, the front door wide open, the walls stained. His wife and children are gone. He sits in the living room, covered in blood, staring into space, whispering something over and over in a language no one recognizes. He takes his own life before they can question him. The town is shaken. The news spreads. The authorities look for someone to blame. All eyes turn to Abigail. They say she pushed him too far. That she dug into places the mind isn't meant to go. But Abigail knows the truth. She didn't awaken madness. She opened a door and something came through. She tells herself to stop, to walk away. But every time she closes her eyes, she sees it again, that light, that figure, that voice calling her name from inside someone else's mouth. Something ancient is waking up. And it wants to be remembered. Not with warmth. Not with love. But with fear. Because it has always been here. And now, it wants her attention. The next patient sat across from Abigail with trembling hands and hollow eyes, as if sleep had become a memory too far to reach. He agreed to hypnosis, hesitant but desperate. His voice cracked when he spoke, like something inside him wanted to stay silent but couldn't hold back anymore. As he drifted into trance, his body stilled, breath shallow, face pale. Then, he began to speak. He was lying in bed when the ceiling above him opened, not physically, but with a kind of silent, glowing rip in the air, like light itself had peeled back. A soft white beam descended, but it wasn't just light. It felt alive, and it touched him, not his body, but his mind, slipping inside like liquid thought. He felt weightless, like his bones no longer belonged to gravity. His chest rose from the mattress, arms falling limp at his sides as if surrendering. He didn't scream. He couldn't. The sound inside his head grew louder, not a noise, but a vibration, deep and metallic, like something vast and ancient humming just outside the range of human comprehension. Then, darkness. Not black like sleep. Black like absence, like the world itself had vanished. He awoke mid-sentence, gasping. Tears rolled down his face. He said they took him. That they weren't interested in his body, but in something deeper, his thoughts, his soul, the pieces of him he couldn't name. They peeled him apart from the inside. Needles touched his spine. Cold metal fingers held his skull. And voices, not words, but syllables twisted in ways that didn't follow human logic. A language that sounded like it came from behind the stars. The fear in his eyes wasn't the fear of remembering. It was the fear of knowing it could happen again. This wasn't just a dream. It wasn't a nightmare. This was the fourth kind, not just seeing, not just touching, but being taken. Against will. Against nature. Against the laws of everything we believe is real. It happened on a night like any other, silent, windless, the town drowned in cold. Abigail was working late, reviewing notes, her desk lamp the only light burning in the house. Her children had already gone to bed. Her daughter had brushed her teeth, read the same story twice, hugged her tight. Nothing felt wrong. Nothing looked strange. But when Abigail walked past the bedroom to check, the bed was empty. The blankets were smooth. The window locked from the inside. No signs of a struggle. No broken glass. No footprints in the snow below. Just, nothing. As if her daughter had been erased. She called out, first gently, then frantically. Her voice echoed through the house like it didn't belong. The silence answered back. And that was when she knew. The police arrived. They questioned her like she was the criminal. They said stress could cause blackouts. That trauma warps memory. That maybe she was hiding something. But Abigail's silence wasn't guilt. It was certainty. The same presence her patients had described, the light, the watchers, the whispering voices in ancient tongues, had taken her daughter. Days passed without sleep. Her hands shook constantly. She couldn't eat. Couldn't breathe without feeling the weight of that night pressing down on her chest. She looked into the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back, her face drawn and pale, her eyes empty, haunted. She began to hear things. Whispers behind walls. Breathing in rooms with no one inside. A faint clicking noise in the dark, mechanical, intelligent, patient. It wasn't just grief. It was something else. Something creeping closer. She started leaving the lights on. Then the doors open. Then the bedroom empty, just in case the presence wanted to take her instead. But they didn't come for her. Not yet. The room was cold, unnaturally so, though the heater hummed softly in the background. Abigail sat in the corner, eyes fixed on her patient, who had just entered trance. His breathing slowed, his body limp, but his expression twisted not in fear, but in something stranger, something ancient. The camera was rolling. The audio was live. Everything felt wrong, as if time itself had thickened. Then he spoke. But the voice that came out was not his. It didn't belong to any human throat. It was deep, layered, distorted like sound filtered through metal and memory. It echoed strangely in the room, despite its softness. And it spoke in words that bent the air, harsh syllables that stung the ear, consonants that shouldn't exist, and vowels that seemed to stretch too long. Abigail froze. She couldn't move. She couldn't look away. Her pen dropped from her hand, yet she didn't notice. When the session ended, she sent the recording to a linguist. Then another. Then another. The final result came back with quiet urgency. The language on the tape was Sumerian, the first written tongue of man, dead for over 4,000 years. But it wasn't just words. The voice had structure, meaning, intention. They translated fragments. Not full sentences, just enough. We shaped you. You belong. Memory is not yours. You will not be allowed to know. These were not teachings. They were declarations. Cold, sterile. As if spoken by a being that did not know compassion, or perhaps had evolved far beyond the need for it. The tape didn't feel like evidence, it felt like a warning. A threat delivered in the voice of something that watched humanity from above, or from within. Abigail sat in her office, tape in hand, and for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel alone. Not in the spiritual way. In the physical one. There was something in the room. Not seen. But sensed. Something that had been awakened not by faith, not by belief, but by attention. The whispers in the walls grew louder after that. And the dreams stopped being dreams. They became instructions. She began recording everything. Every session. Every sound. Every flicker of light. She mounted cameras on walls, placed recorders under her desk, kept journals under lock and key. But something was always wrong. The videos glitched at the exact moments they shouldn't. The audio warped only when the voices returned. And the files, the most important ones, either disappeared or reappeared corrupted, names scrambled, timestamps erased. Once, during a session, she watched the patient's eyes roll back and his mouth open, but instead of sound, the video turned to static. The power didn't go out. The camera didn't stop. The footage existed. But the moment she tried to replay it, her laptop shut down. The hard drive blinked twice, and the file was gone. She called the police. She showed them what was left: notebooks full of drawings, transcripts, fragments of a voice speaking through other people. They nodded politely. But their eyes said everything. Delusion. Trauma. Mental collapse. That's what they saw. But Abigail knew. The fear was real. The terror that wrapped around the town like smoke was not her imagination. It lived in the trees, in the mirrors, in the silence between midnight and 3:03. It didn't care what they believed. This was the cruelest design, the elegance of a perfect trap. To experience horror so intimate, so undeniable, and be left without proof. To feel hands on your mind, voices in your bones, and yet be labeled as broken, as mad. The truth was everywhere, but it dissolved under scrutiny. It bled through reality like a shadow behind glass. She wasn't just afraid. She was aware. And that was worse. It happened on a night when the wind stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The trees outside her window stood perfectly still, not a single branch twitching. The stars, usually hidden behind clouds, were out. But they didn't flicker. They stared. Cold. Silent. Watching. Abigail, exhausted and hollowed out by weeks of searching, finally allowed herself to be hypnotized. Not out of curiosity, but necessity. Something had been calling her, not in dreams, not in thoughts, but from beneath the silence itself. A signal, ancient and relentless. The moment her eyes closed, her body went rigid. Her fingers curled into the fabric of the chair. Her jaw clenched. And then her mouth opened. What emerged was not her voice. It was deep, distorted, soaked in static and gravity, like it came from beneath the earth or beyond the edge of space. It did not echo in the room, it echoed inside the bones of anyone who heard it. It didn't speak with emotion, or malice. Just certainty. I am God. The lights in the room dimmed. I created you. The air turned thick, humming low, as if filled with the charge of a coming storm. I will not let you remember. Her back arched. Her eyes rolled back into white. The camera recording the session trembled violently, the footage rippling like liquid. The audio fractured, split into layers, as if two realities were trying to overlap, one human, the other, incomprehensible. Then stillness. No breath. No motion. No time. Just silence so complete it felt like it had weight. When Abigail awoke, she wept, but not for herself. She wept for everything she had ever believed about the world, about history, about gods, about love, about memory. She understood now, the ones we called aliens, were never visitors. They were never curious explorers. They were the architects. The original minds. They didn't just visit Earth, they shaped it. Shaped us. Not out of affection, but utility. Not to teach, but to control. And memory was never ours to keep. Every time someone saw too much, felt too deeply, came too close, they reached into the mind and took it back. They were not gods in the way we hoped. They were gods in the way we feared. Cold. Calculating. Absolute. And we humans, we were never at the top. We were never in control. We were only allowed to believe we were. Until someone like Abigail looked too far into the dark. She never found her daughter. Not a trace. No sound. No whisper in dreams. Just an empty bed and a memory that refused to fade. Abigail wandered the edges of town like a ghost, her eyes hollow, her voice soft, her hands always cold. She stopped speaking about it to others. Not because she gave up, but because she saw it in their eyes, that quiet pity. The way they smiled too gently. The way they dismissed the fear in her voice with comforting lies. They didn't believe her. But she remembered. She remembered the voice. The light. The way reality had peeled back like old wallpaper, revealing something underneath, something ancient, watching, waiting. She remembered the way it had spoken through her. How it had felt inside her mind, moving through thoughts like pages in an open book. She remembered what it said. And she understood why no one else would. Because some truths are too large. They stretch beyond the boundaries of belief. They crack the walls of logic. They don't just haunt you, they unmake you. They undo the comfort of rules, of religion, of science. They don't fit into stories. They break them. The truth is out there. It doesn't shine. It doesn't comfort. It is cold. It is cruel. And it does not care what we believe. Some truths are too big, too terrifying, too real. And maybe, we were never meant to know them. She never found her daughter. She never escaped the voice. But she remembered. Not the details, not the how, not the when, but the feeling. The silence before the light. The message inside the memory. The terrifying realization that we are not alone, and maybe, we never were. What if the architects of life don't love us? What if they only use us? Do you believe her story? Do you think it's madness or something buried in all of us, just waiting to resurface? Leave a comment below, tell me what you felt. Not what you think, but what you felt. And if this truth was too big to hold, just wait until you hear what happened in the Nevada desert, where no one ever came back the same.